February 28, 2024. A Wisconsin mother calls 911 after weeks of eerie silence from her son. When deputies arrive, they find two bodies, covered in blankets, rotting for days, and the prime suspect, their 17-year-old son, who'd already fled across state lines with a manifesto titled, "How to Kill the President." A 17-year-old honor student, a quiet Wisconsin suburb. Two parents were shot dead, their bodies hidden under blankets for weeks. But the most chilling discovery wasn't in the crime scene. It was on the killer's phone. Federal agents uncovered a plot so grotesque, it read like a terrorist's manifesto. Murder his family, finance an assassination attempt on a U.S. president, and ignite a race war. This is the FBI's nightmare, a teenager radicalized in the darkest corners of the internet. On February 28, 2024, a grandmother's frantic call to police set the investigation in motion. Her son, Don Mayer, and his wife Tatiana hadn't been heard from in weeks. When deputies entered their Waukesha home, the stench of death led them to a grisly discovery. Don and Tatiana's bodies, hidden under blankets, each killed by a single gunshot to the head. The suspect, their own son, Nikita, a teenager who, by all accounts, had been a model student just months earlier. But this was no impulsive act of rage. Police would later learn Nikita allegedly lived with his parents' corpses for over 2 weeks, even recording himself lighting candles around their bodies in a twisted attempt to mask the smell. In one video, he reportedly held a phone up to his stepfather's body, as if showcasing his work to someone watching. The question was, who? Nikita's cross-country flight only deepened the mystery. After the killings, he vanished in his stepfather's stolen SUV, driving nearly 1,000 miles to a remote Kansas town. When police finally arrested him, they found more than just the murder weapon, a .357 Smith & Wesson revolver stashed in the car. There were bank documents, $14,000 in cash, and a camera containing the chilling footage of his parents' bodies. But the most damning evidence wasn't on the SD card. It was buried in Nikita's phone. The horrifying discovery wasn't just a tragic family loss. It marked the beginning of something far more sinister. Nikita, the honor student with a promising future, had become a figure of pure evil, his transformation a result of a twisted ideology that led him to murder his own parents. What unfolded next would shatter the very notion of safety in suburban America and open a window into a world of digital radicalization that is now all too real. Nikita Cassub was an honor student, an exemplary child in the eyes of his community. His parents, Don Mayer and Tatiana, were proud of their son. But that image of suburban normalcy was about to be shattered by an act of unimaginable violence. It was the grandmother's frantic call to 911 that finally unraveled the horror. She had not heard from her son and daughter-in-law for several weeks. She feared something had happened to them. The authorities arrived at the Cassub family home and discovered a crime scene so chilling it would haunt them forever. There, covered in blankets, were the decomposing bodies of Don and Tatiana, shot execution style. The smell alone told deputies that time had run out. They knew something was terribly wrong. But this wasn't a crime of passion. It was something much darker, much more premeditated. The crime scene revealed a chilling detail. Nikita had staged a macabre shrine around the bodies, a grotesque display that added an eerie ritualistic element to the already horrific scene. What police found next would reveal even more disturbing truths. Nikita had filmed himself on his parents' phone, holding it to Don's lifeless body, as though it was some perverse proof of loyalty. To what? To whom? A young man had slaughtered his parents in cold blood, but the reasons behind it were far more complex and disturbing than anyone could have imagined. As the investigation unfolded, the key to understanding the horror lay buried in Nikita's phone. Federal agents unearthed encrypted chats, hidden messages that painted a terrifying picture. Nikita wasn't just a troubled teenager. He had become a pawn in a much larger, far more dangerous ideology. Under the username Awoken, Nikita had connected with members of a neo-Nazi group known as the Order of the Nine Angles, a violent and extremist faction with one mission: to overthrow the U.S. government and ignite a race war across America. They believed that only through chaos and destruction could they bring about a new world order. Nikita had bought into their beliefs. In his chilling manifesto, he wrote, "Eliminating the president guarantees chaos." His plan was methodical, almost clinical. In his warped mind, murdering President Trump would be the catalyst for the kind of violent revolution he had been groomed for. He was certain that the assassination would set off a series of violent events that would engulf the nation. And in order to fund this grand act of terrorism, Nikita had a plan. His parents, his own flesh and blood, were nothing more than an obstacle to be eliminated. They were his financial source. Their deaths would provide the money he needed to carry out his mission: to assassinate the president, and, in his words, ignite a firestorm. The FBI's investigation revealed a disturbing truth. Nikita was not acting alone. He had surrounded himself with an online network of conspirators who were just as dangerous as he was. On encrypted messaging platforms like Telegram, he had been in contact with people from all corners of the globe, each of them offering advice, support, and guidance on how to carry out his plans. One contact, known only as Angel of Death, had coached Nikita on purchasing attack drones, an ominous sign that this wasn't just some amateur plot. Nikita wasn't planning a simple assassination. He was orchestrating a full-scale attack on American soil. Another contact, speaking in Eastern European dialects, sent Nikita coordinates for an escape route to Ukraine, a place where he could lay low after his attacks. "Brush up on your Russian," they told him. "When the 10 attacks hit the news, it'll be you." Nikita wasn't working in isolation. He had a network of individuals, some experienced in violence, some skilled in technology, helping him build his arsenal of weapons and formulate his plan. The world of digital extremism had become a breeding ground for radicals like Nikita, and the reality of that network was now on full display. But even closer to home, Nikita's classmates knew something was wrong. One girl spoke to authorities, describing how Nikita had bragged about contacting a man in Russia to assist with his plan. His Snapchat account was filled with disturbing content, violent montages of war crimes, graphic images of death, destruction, and chaos. Yet, no one took these signs seriously. His friends saw the gore edits as nothing more than rebellious teen antics. They couldn't have known that the same boy who was sitting next to them in class was planning an attack on the highest office in the land. As investigators delved deeper into Nikita's life, another horrifying realization began to take shape. Months before the murders, the FBI had already visited the Cassub household. Why? What had prompted the investigation into this seemingly normal family? The files remain unclear, but one chilling comment made by Nikita in an online chat suggests that he had known about the FBI's visit. He joked about it casually, as though it was nothing more than a nuisance to him. He wrote, "If my parents found my chats, they'd take my phone, especially after the FBI came. Lol." A joke, a mockery of the very authorities who had already flagged him. And yet, despite the FBI's visit, despite his violent behavior and his connections to a global network of radicals, Nikita was allowed to continue on his path. Was it too late? Had his descent into extremism already been sealed? Or was there a chance, however slim, that this tragedy could have been prevented? Today, Nikita Cassub sits in a jail cell, awaiting trial for the murder of his parents and his involvement in a plot to assassinate the president. But the real question remains, how do we stop the next Nikita Cassub? How do we protect young minds from the seductive power of digital extremism and radicalization? Nikita may be behind bars, but the digital underworld he was part of is still alive and thriving. There are more Awokens out there, more vulnerable young people being lured into the dark corners of the internet, groomed by extremist ideologies, and encouraged to act on their violent beliefs.